Hello, my name is Jason Ankin and this is my vlog channel. Today's vlog is going to be about a book review. I'm going to start to do these more frequently. So basically every time that I finish reading a book, I'm going to review it. Another wee note is I haven't done a vlog in about 4 days, and that's purely because I'm just sort of, when I first started vlogging every day, it was purely an experiment. I was doing it with the idea or intention of seeing what occurs. So I was going to vlog every day and see if I could make it a habit. What I've started to realize is that vlogging every day is pretty difficult because it puts you under a lot of pressure to sort of come up with a vlog idea. And the problem with that, it can make you feel quite unnatural, like you're just sort of saying things for the sake of it. So I'm going to have a more unstructured approach rather than sort of disciplined, sort of doing it every single day. And that's purely because it can help with sort of spontaneity and more sort of like a vlog when I want to talk about something like a change that's just occurred in my life, for example. Anyway, so I'll probably be vlogging more randomly, maybe 3 to 4 times a week. If I want to do a run of vlogs in a row, I'll do that as well. But I still want to be an active vlogger, but it's just going to be less frequent, probably. Right, so today is a book review, and this is basically something I'm going to start to do on a more regular basis. Now, this book is very controversial in the world. It is called The Prince. So it is called The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. Now, Niccolo Machiavelli was basically like a scholar slash philosopher, really interested in political understanding politics. And he lived just in the early, or he died actually just in the early 16th century, so quite a while ago. And this book, The Prince, he wrote this book specifically to a well-known prince back then called the Magnificent Lorenzo de' Medici. Now, the Medici family, I don't know a whole lot about their history or whatever. I just know it through this book, really. But they're a very powerful family. And basically, Niccolo Machiavelli wrote this book as a gift to the Magnificent Lorenzo de' Medici. Because when you're giving gifts to a prince, you give them your most prized possessions. And he believed that his most prized possession was his knowledge. So he wrote this book, and it was very, very controversial. This book was actually banned. He actually wrote 2 books, I think. He wrote one called The Prince, and he wrote one called The Discourses. Now, The Prince, I believe, as I've just read it, it's about governing principalities. So a principality is basically like a state that is governed by a king or a prince. And he wrote a second book on The Discourses, which is basically like a republic, about the republics, which I think is, when a state is governed by a government or its people or whatever. I haven't yet read that book, so I don't know exactly. I also watched a documentary on this book, an hour-long documentary, and see how it's applied to the modern world in today's politics and stuff like that. And a little bit about Machiavelli's history and stuff like that. And I also read a little bit about his Wikipedia. Now, this is a world-class book. This is well known. This is not a typical book. This is one of those books that was groundbreaking. Even so much so that there's a term that's been extracted from this. So it's groundbreaking because it was basically the origins of modern political science. This is the genesis of modern political science. It's one of the first books ever written about political science or whatever, strategy and stuff like that. Now, what's really interesting about it is that there's a term in psychology called Machiavellianism, and it's because of this book that the term Machiavellianism is a sort of modern term in today's sort of psychology. Machiavellianism is basically it's basically a personality trait that a person possesses in which they're willing to deceive and cheat, and in order to accomplish their goals. It's really about an individual who is just ruthless, and they just want to achieve their objectives, and they're willing to do whatever it takes in order to achieve their objectives. Now, because this book was written in the 1600s, it was a little, back then it was a little more volatile, in that states were changing hands very, very quickly. One ruler was conquering over another ruler, and it was very violent and chaotic and bloody, and that's why the book was so, it's a little bit more relevant in the past, because we don't necessarily do that today in modern politics, or some people would disagree, but it's just one of those books. Now the book is broken into two sections. The first section is basically how to take over a state, and then the second section is how to maintain the state. So basically how to take over. So one of the examples that he gives is basically, this is what makes it so controversial, because he's so brutal and so ruthless in his he's just very transparent. He doesn't hold anything back whatsoever. He says, if you want to take over a state and you want to, you want to rule and govern that state, you're going to have a problem when you're coming against the people. Because if you just killed their previous ruler, you have to do one of two things in order to win over the people. And that is basically you have to be extremely generous to them, or on the other hand is you have to be extremely brutal. You basically have to crush their spirit. And it's stuff like this that makes the book so controversial. On top of that, he also recommends within this book, if you've just taken over a state and you've killed a prince or a king, a ruler of that country or that state or whatever, it's also very important that you wipe out their family and kill off all of their family, so that there's no one that can come back and avenge or seek revenge in the future. And this may seem very, very brutal. It's very animalistic. I almost sort of see it as very similar to like lions. Like once a lion sort of takes over a new territory, it sort of kills all the cubs, so that the females then are more receptive and ready to sort of meet again and build a new territory. It's a very ruthless and very animalistic approach. But what he argues in this book, that it's effective, it works. If you actually want to take over a state and govern it, this is the things that you need to do, and that's what makes it so brutal and so controversial. And yeah, to put it into perspective, these books were banned completely. All works by Niccolo Machiavelli were banned. The Prince, his other book, The Discourses, were banned by the Catholic Church, completely banned. No one was allowed to read these books whatsoever. But it was actually released, I think, 5 years after his death. But they were banned. Now, people could judge me. Why am I reading a book like this? And I think it's really important. I'm running a business, and I'm starting to realize more and more that there's sort of two things that you need to be really good at. You need to understand yourself, physically, emotionally, mentally, but you also need to know what's going on outside of you. And because regardless of the desire to live in an ideal world, unfortunately we don't. And there are people out there to get you. There are people that are out there to exploit you or deceive you. And in fact, he says in this book, a deceiver will always find people who are willing to be deceived. And the way that I read that is, well, I don't want to necessarily be a deceiver. I don't want to be someone who goes out and deceives people. But what I don't want is to be somebody who's easily deceived. I don't want to be somebody who can be exploited or taken advantage of. And it's principles in this book that deceivers will use to deceive you. So the way that I see this is a form of, how could you say, self-defense in a way from people who are deceptive, people who are out to get you. You need to know what they're thinking, you need to know what they're like in order to prevent them from taking advantage of you. And this is why I see this book as being so beneficial. If my business blows up in the future, you know, this video could be used against me because it's so controversial. People know what's in this book. It's so powerful. The principles are so they're so right, they're so effective, they work. Military generals use this book, business CEOs use this book, political leaders, sports coaches, anyone who's in a leadership position and who wants to get advantage over their competition will use this to their advantage. And I don't want to be at a disadvantage for not knowing it. So this is why I study things like this. Like I said, if my business blows up in the future, this video could be used against me. Like, look, he studied The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. But it's important. It's important that you know this stuff. Like I said, a deceiver will always find somebody willing to be deceived. Therefore, do you want to be deceived by others? I don't. So I need to know what the tricks are and what the tools are that these deceivers will use. Now, what's really interesting, the sort of the picture that he paints is, on the surface, you want to be nice, kind, and virtuous, but behind the scenes, in the shadows, you want to be ruthless, and you want to be strategically ruthless, basically. And I kind of agree with this because, again, this is another book, another strategical thinking book called The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Actually recommends keep your plans in the darkness. Don't let anybody know your plans. And I think that's just smart. That's not some sort of dodgy, deceitful thing. It's smart if you tell your competition what you're doing. And these videos kind of do that. So it's a little bit, you know, should you be vlogging because you're giving too much away? You're giving too much about your life away, and people who are watching these can sort of analyze them and study them and get to know the type of person you are. But you get what I'm saying. So yeah, this is what I really liked about the way the book was written. It's written into different sections. So you got like a section that could be half a page long, or maybe a full page, or maybe 2 pages. And each section is broken into maybe sort of 1 or 2 key principles. And what I like about that is you can reread the section and just extract the key principle of what he's explaining, making it very easy to analyze and also very quick to convert from theory to practice. So you can start to immediately extract the principles from this book and start to apply them straight away. So I definitely will be rereading this book on a number of occasions throughout my life. It's very it's controversial, but I like strategical thinking stuff, and I'm a strategical type of person. If you watch my video on being an INTJ, an introverted, intuitive, thinking, judging type, the INTJs are textbook strategists, and this book suits my personality to the T. Yeah, so that's basically it. I'm going to start. I'm already halfway through my next book, so I should probably should be done with that in about a week. I will put a link in the description to get this book if you so wish to get it. And that's all I really have to say. So yes, I appreciate you for watching this video right to the end if you made it. Thank you. My name is Jason Ankin. This is my vlog channel, and I will see you later. Bye.